It's going to be one of those recordings, isn't it? I think you're going to be putting on the child crying in the background filter for this one.
Excellent. Daddy, why do you keep swearing into the microphone? Daddy, why do you never play with me? Why is it always history, history, history? Why are you reading me the biography of Churchill, Daddy? I don't want it.
All I want is a Gruffalo. I like the Gruffalo, but the Gruffalo's for children.
Yes, instead all I get is the gruff old racist.
And I'm only 34.
I meant Churchill. Although... very quickly, before we start, I'm just going to go grab some water. I've realised my cup runneth empty.
Okay, no trouble.
It was that quick.
Like a flash.
Like a flash. I don't know any songs. There we go. Started badly, you rescued it. Well done.
Also can be slightly changed to flash, which is someone who shows their willy to people in a park.
Yes.
Flash,
open your trench coat. Da, da, da.
Da, 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 da.
Beautiful.
Flash.
Hello and welcome to That Was Genius. The little history podcast in which Tom...
Hello.
ruler of rewriting Queen songs, and Sam, not, discuss...
Gordon's alive.
Gordon's alive. Discuss history stories on a theme each week. The story's decided the week in advance, but everything else that happens is a surprise. I've now got back quick as a flash, with some water, so we're ready to go. And what's the topic?
We've done well.
We have.
Haven't we? So far we've done Brian Blessed, we've sung a silly song, and we haven't done any French accents.
We haven't, but you showed me a picture of our new website that has, the first thing you see is a picture of a man sticking his finger up his own bottom.
And that is incidentally an animation, a drawing from a medieval manuscript, not just...
It's not just a doodle that Tom drew.
or a bit of gay pornography, for that matter.
Yes, so that's the new website, which we mentioned a few episodes ago, which is coming along rather nicely. What is our topic this week, Tom, apart from sticking fingers up bottoms?
The topic... Was that the topic? Shit. I was doing it for pleasure. The topic this week is espionage, or as the French say, espionage.
Yes, and as the British would call it, espionage.
Oh, yes, a subtle difference there. And I've got a cracking sauce for you, Sam, that I think you're going to enjoy very much. Very much.
Yes, you hinted at what it might be earlier in off air. And I think I might actually know this sauce, but it's a good sauce if it's the one I'm thinking of.
Oh, damn you. It is very good.
Don't worry, the fact that I may or may not have heard of it before doesn't ruin it.
Well, we have done Spies before, haven't we, I think? And so when I started researching, I came across a few things that I'd already come across. So, yeah, you may well have come across it when researching for a previous episode on a similar topic.
I've just done a spy, but it's a good spy story. But I've just done a spy.
Excellent. No, that's absolutely
a not
fine.
very good spy who tried very hard.
Well, doesn't make up for it, does it? Being hardworking doesn't make up for being incompetent. There's a slight link there between that and my sauce. Yeah,
excellent.
There is a slight link between incompetence.
We should probably flip something espionage related to see who goes first, shouldn't we?
Well, I'm tucked away in a children's bedroom, desperately trying not to move the microphone. So...
Have you got a baby monitor?
Oh, that was very clever of you.
Yes.
No, I haven't, but I have got a little blue bear.
Okay, does the little blue bear have a recorder in it so you can record messages?
No, it does. Oh, I don't think it does. I'll have to rip it apart, curiously, to find out.
Worth it.
In front of my children.
Yes, worth it.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Okay, fine.
Have you got anything better than the blue bear?
I've got an envelope marked private and confidential. All it had in it was a tax statement, but it has the word. It's kind of secretive in the sense that it's for my eyes only.
Oh, okay. So they haven't. It's not your colonoscopy staff returning your piles or anything like that, is it?
Yeah, I'm sorry, we can't accept these as samples. Please. It's got return to sender stamped on them.
In a little Ziploc bag.
Yes, also, sir, we're dentists.
And these are not tonsils.
Right, which side? This is good. This is thrilling, isn't it? Which side would you like to pick, Tom? Do you want the side that says private and confidential and has my address? Or the side that doesn't?
The side that doesn't.
Cool. Okay. Here we go. You win, Tom. You win.
That
there we
spiced
go.
it up. The sound it made spiced it up. I'm going to go first.
Go on, then.
Okay, so as mentioned, I've got a slightly more light-hearted topic this week based on a very funny source I found.
Well, it couldn't have been less light-hearted than last week.
Genocide and the abuse of corpses. Yeah, so I've got a bit more light-hearted than that. So my document...
Genocide and the abuse of corpses is my favourite doo-wop band.
Very good. Yes. My topic is a document from 1944 called Simple Sabotage from the CIA, Sam.
Oh, my God.
Hi, I'm Officer Porky Sausage from the CIA, which you may know stands for the Coconut Ignition Authority. We supervise and monitor the igniting of all coconuts and other tropical troops in the United States of America. Our motto, dedication to desiccation through decimation.
That very good. Very good.
Hi, I'm Officer Hank Wankington from the CIA, which you may know stands for the Chili Iguana Association. We supervise and monitor the warmth of all iguanas and other herbivorous amphibians in the United States of America. Our motto, all shivered lizards considered in blizzards. No, seriously.
Hi, I'm Randy Youngman from the CIA, also known as the Colon Investigation Authority. We supervise and monitor the anuses of everyone trying to enter or exit the United States.
Yeah, for anyone who's trying to...
Our motto is, in or out, a finger's going up the spout.
Even if you're just in transit, you are going to have your personal space interfered with. Because that's LAX. Oh, dear.
Passing through Newark will pass through your undies.
No, anyway, seriously, it stands for the Central Intelligence Agency, doesn't it, Sam?
No.
Oh, no, really, it does. The organisation responsible for the Bay of Pigs cock up is called the Central Intelligence Agency. So, the Simple Sabotage Field Manual has been declassified and can be viewed by anyone on the CIA website, Sam.
Because all good secret organisations have a website.
Yeah, so
including field manuals.
I think it's a funny field. I think the field manual was probably targeted at continental Europe in the Second World War. 1944, Nazi occupation. That would appear to be what it's targeting at.
Hello everyone, quick interlude from Sam here. Tom in this episode references a CIA manual several times. Obviously the CIA didn't exist until after World War II, so he obviously means the OSS, which became the CIA and stands for the Office of Strategic Services. So there you go.
Anyway, it's 31 pages long, and let me describe it to you, Sam, because it is cracking. So this document, as you'd expect for the title, is a guide to everyday sabotage.
Just your everyday sabotage. Nothing special.
Exactly.
It's not like
Just
birthday
casual
sabotage.
Christmas sabotage. 50th birthday sabotage.
Yeah.
Nothing that big.
No.
And it's obviously concerned with individuals sympathetic to Western values.
I avoided a blowjob joke.
What, 50th birthday?
Yeah.
I've been waiting 30 years for this. Sympathetic to Western values in a country ruled by people we don't like, like the dirty Cubans or governments in the Soviet bloc or maybe the SNP. It's about getting those sympathetic individuals to perform small acts of resistance that, when multiplied by thousands and thousands, become an effective form of resistance. So it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. And because of that, they're wonderfully petty.
Don't buy a bus ticket, or if you do, just buy a single when intending to make a return journey. Boom! Revolution!
You're on the right lines. It will go on to discuss acts of sabotage using easy-to-come-by things and also how to behave in an uncooperative manner. So think a 3-year-old at bedtime. That's basically what it is. So,
how to behave in an uncooperative manner.
Yep. And many of us are going to be thinking, wow, I don't need to be in 1940s Germany or France to be experiencing this sort of behaviour in the workplace. Anyway, how do you motivate a potential saboteur, Tom? Well, I'm glad you asked, Sam. Quote, purposeful stupidity is contrary to human nature. Now, I
What?
disagree with you there, CIA. And because this podcast comes very naturally to me.
Yes, it does. And also, the Bay of Pigs came very naturally to the CIA.
Oh, yeah. So purposeful stupidity is contrary to human nature. Anyway, so it is recommended that you highlight to people that small acts can lead to big things when done regularly by large numbers of people. And these big things can lead to a change in leadership of your country or a change in the political structure of your country, those sort of things. So it's death by 1,000 cuts again. Slightly patronising quote here. Abstract verbalisations about personal liberty, freedom of press, and so on will not be convincing in most parts of the world. In many areas, they will not even be comprehensible. Thanks for that, CIA.
Like, I don't know, let's pick a country, for example, where talking about liberty and freedom wouldn't be comprehended by the local population. South America.
Guantanamo Bay.
Yes, and it's South America. Iran.
Yeah.
Large parts of Afghanistan.
And built on that basic principle, we can torture people, can't we?
Yeah.
US of A. Okay.
But they don't even understand liberty, Tom. They're not going to mind it being taken away from them.
So just waterboard them. Here are some tips from the document for keeping your activities low risk. Try to commit acts for which large numbers of people could be responsible. Using a McDonald's employee analogy, you could throw chips all over the floor of the restaurant, or not wash so that your BO stinks out the kitchen.
Fart on a crowded train.
Here's a great tip. Frequently you can get away with such acts under the cover of pretending stupidity. I didn't realise that rifle barrels needed to be straight. After you've committed an act of easy sabotage, resist any temptation to wait around and see what happens. Loiterers arouse suspicion. Shit in the muesli and run, folks.
My God,
Fart
this
on
could
the
describe
train and
any
go.
tourist. Are all tourists just minor saboteurs for their own country? Actually, that works as an analogy, doesn't it?
Tourists bumbling around in busy areas, getting in everyone's way when you're trying to get to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Standing in the doorways of the tube train as the doors close.
That's right, taking excessive amounts of time to buy a ticket.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
Swinging a wheelie suitcase around with great force in a confined area.
Knocking people over with your fanny pack as you swing round to see when the next tube train's arriving.
Trying to pay with Scottish banknotes.
Here are some specific suggestions for simple sabotage. That's a quote. It's the sort of stuff that only the super intelligent people.
Specific suggestions for simple sabotage.
Specific. Yeah, it was quite a mouthful. Specific suggestions.
It's not hard to act stupid, is it?
Try saying that in a Sean Connery accent. Specific suggestions for simple sabotage. It's the sort of stuff that only super intelligent people at the CIA could have come up with. Nobody else would have possibly come up with this sort of stuff. And here's a quote for sabotaging buildings. Quote, they are extremely susceptible to damage, especially by fire, ... Fires can be started wherever there is an accumulation of inflammable material.
What?
Say what? Damn it, this is where we have been going wrong. We have been trying to blow the building down with our air dryers when we should have just been setting alight to the extremely large pile of Lynx deodorant in the basement.
Yes. Why, oh why do we keep on throwing matches into this pile of ice? We are trying to burn down the building, but for some reason, setting fire to the baths full of water is just not cutting it.
It is not working. No wonder we are useless French people. You know what we need? We need a short document that can explain to us how to do this properly. Hopefully provided by someone exceptionally intelligent. Maybe someone at the CIA.
Yes. If only there was a pictorial guide.
Ah, Renee, look what I have found. It is me, Leclerc. Here's a cracker that we all actually need to try at some point when we leave a workplace where we didn't feel like we were being treated particularly nicely.
There's only 3 episodes of this podcast then. Once I've served my notice.
Quote, forget to provide paper in toilets. Put tightly rolled paper, hair, and other... No, it's more than just that. More than just that. God damn.
This is so unbelievably, wonderfully petty.
I know.
Do you know how to bring down the Third Reich? The way to do it, Tom, is you only put 2 wipes worth of toilet paper.
Aha! The Iron Curtain will be crumbling.
I don't even know what accents we're doing now. It keeps flitting between French and German.
So let me start again. Forget to provide paper in toilets. Put tightly rolled paper, hair and other obstructions in the WC. Saturate a sponge with thick starch or other sugar solution. Squeeze it tightly into a ball, wrap it with string and dry. Remove the string when fully dried. The sponge will be in the form of a tight, hard ball. Flush down the WC or otherwise introduce into a sewer line. The sponge will gradually expand its normal size and plug the sewage system. Join us next week on Blue Peter when we'll be making Tracy Island.
Also, I had no idea that literally all of my university housemates were American spies.
There's a very long list of simple things in this section that you can do. You can blunt your tools, bend saws, put small amounts of crap in cooling systems. By crap, I mean
literally
debris.
poo.
Well, you could. Anything that requires grease to work properly, just put a bit of debris in the grease. Now, despite being written in the 1940s, this document was well ahead of its time. Quote, in all types of transformers, block the ventilation by putting debris round the transformer. So Optimus Prime is notoriously OCD when it comes to tidiness, Sam.
Yes, he is, yeah.
All you need to do is put debris around the Transformers and they're fucked. You don't see that in the films.
Just wait, Optimus Prime wakes up in the morning and discovers that someone's just fly-tipped an old bath and some kitchen units over him.
Over his fence.
Cannot be.
in his two-bed detached house in a leafy suburb. Optimus Prime wakes up. Oh, really fancy a cup of tea.
I just like the idea of a Transformer waking up, falling over immediately because its balance is fucked, and it turns out it's because a bird started nesting in its ear. It's a family of sparrows.
Sub-Optimus Prime, that would be, wouldn't it? Quote, derail mine cars by putting obstructions on the rails and in switch points. If possible, pick a gallery where coal cars have to pass each other so that the traffic will be snarled up. Little known fact, Sam. One of the prop men on the second Indiana Jones
I was just about to make an
simple saboteur.
I was just about to make an Indiana Jones joke.
I knew, and I thought I'd have to get in there quick.
Yeah. And to think, Indiana Jones was working for the CIA. He was providing them with all of these magical treasures. And how do they repay him, Tom? How do they repay him?
By just making his life more difficult. I like the way, as a team, by the way, Sam, as a podcasting team, rather than just give you the opportunity to take the punchline, we wrestled for it. Like all good comedy duo.
No, mine.
Get your hands off.
Fortunately, I get to edit this, so we'll see who's funnier in the final cut, Tom.
Here's another very good one for railways. I think you're going to be able to insert the jokes on this one, Sam. Quote, make train travel as inconvenient as possible for enemy personnel. Issue 2 tickets for the same seat in the train so that an interesting argument will result.
I mean, I don't think it needs the CIA to make train travel as inconvenient as possible.
Just privatise it. Other tips involve being excessively noisy during the night. So, shouting, tickets, please, right in people's ears.
Oh, is this still in trains, or is this not just annoying your Nazi wife? just shouting loudly in the middle of the night. Liberty!
Maybe if you've already married a Nazi, I think it's a little bit late to be thinking about resistance. You're literally in bed with the enemy.
Yes, yes, but sabotaging it every night with disappointing sex. Loud noises.
No, I'm doing it deliberately. No, this is an act of resistance. You're very good at ejaculating after 2 minutes.
Yeah. I should add, by the way, neither of our wives are Nazis. Be noisy on a train at night. I like that.
Yeah, and bang around the luggage was another suggestion. Bus drivers can drive past stops where the enemy wanted to get off.
Again?
Yeah, well done, CIA. Good work. Turn on lights in parked cars. Taxi drivers take the longer route. Yeah, lots of CIA operatives in Mumbai.
Yes, and London.
Is that right? Barge captains give wrong directions so that people take slower routes where the tides aren't as
Favourable.
Supportive? Favourable. Supportive sounds like a bra. Favourable is better. Quote, hamper official...
Sports tides.
hamper official and especially military business by making at least one telephone call a day to an enemy headquarters. When you get them, tell them you have the wrong number. Hello, my name is Mr. Burns.
Me and Schindler both made shells for the Nazis, but mine worked, damn it.
It's a really rather odd one. Quote, anyone can break up a showing of an enemy propaganda film by putting 2 or 3 dozen large moths in a paper bag. Take the bag to the movies with you. Put it on the floor in an empty section of the theatre as you go in and leave it open. The moths will fly out and climb into the projector beam so that the film will be obscured by fluttering shadows.
Brilliant. All you need for this is 2 or 3 dozen moths.
Which
Quick,
is not going
to the moth farm.
It's never going to draw attention, is it? You're running around with a net on a stick.
Yeah. Oh, so you get to the cinema and the concierge is going to say, I'm sorry, sir, what's in the bag? You're not allowed to bring your own food in here. Oh, it's not food. Behold,
not another
my
one.
moth. That's the third tonight.
Can you be slightly more creative? Similarly, I imagine the CIA would be happy if you put a large number of skunks in a small bag and take them to a Nazi rally, release them surreptitiously. Or take a large rucksack of gerbils to a restaurant and put them in the buffet area and just watch as they cause chaos. You know, the list is endless.
It is, it really is. There's a lot of fun to be had.
By taking a large number of animals
Yes.
to a place where Nazis congregate. And I'd like to finish with my favourite section of them all. It's called, quote, General Interference with Organisations and Production. I've not taken any notes on this section because there's so much gold. I'm just going to go straight to the source.
Go on.
And for anyone who has worked in a large business, you'll be listening to this thinking, what's new, pussycat? Whoa, 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 whoa.
I'm looking forward to this. I feel like I might know what's coming.
Okay, General Interference with Organisations and Production. Insist on doing everything through channels. Never permit shortcuts to be taken in order to expedite decisions. Make, quote, speeches. Talk as frequently as possible and at great length. Illustrate your points by long anecdotes and accounts of personal experiences. Never hesitate to make a few appropriate patriotic comments. Yep, we've all had that line manager.
I am that line manager. Other than the patriotic comments,
good one.
this is like a BBC leadership training manual.
It is, yeah, absolutely. When possible, refer all matters to committees for further study and consideration.
Oh, yeah. Done that.
Attempt to make the committees as large as possible, never less than 5. This is just like meetings at work. Bring up irrelevant issues as frequently as possible.
Yeah.
Haggle over precise wordings of communications, minutes and resolutions.
Yep. Is this genuinely? Was this not written with any sense of irony whatsoever by the CIA, by a large government body?
This is how to be a good bureaucrat. Misunderstand orders. Ask endless questions or engage in long correspondence about such orders. Quibble over them when you can.
Yes.
In making work assignments, always sign out the unimportant jobs first. See that the important jobs are assigned to inefficient workers or poor machines.
Excellent. God, this rings so many bells. This is most of my life.
When training new workers, give incomplete or misleading instructions. And this is probably the best one of them
Send
all.
them down to the storeroom for a long wait. Tartan paint.
Yeah, that's right. To lower morale, and with it production, be pleasant to inefficient workers. Give them undeserved promotions. Discriminate against efficient workers. Complain unjustly about their work. Yep. Multiply paperwork in plausible ways. Start duplicate files.
Do you know what? I've just had a thought, Tom. I've just had a brainwave. What if this manual was not intended to be given to individuals? It was intended to be widely distributed so that everyone would suspect their colleagues, who they didn't like, of being a spy. It wasn't intended for you to use. It was intended to make you suspect that every other person around you
You might
was
be
an
right.
insurrectionist.
And you know what, Sam? That's why they're the goddamn Central Intelligence Agency.
Damn it, that's why they're the Chile Iguana Authority.
They're always one step ahead of everybody else.
I reckon that might be it, you know. I reckon it's a manual that just has so many small acts of petty stupidity in it that literally anyone could be accused of being an enemy spy. And therefore the net effect is far larger than the sum of its parts.
Or this is targeted to Nazi Germany, and actually German workers are so goddamn efficient that the whole concept of this is appalling.
Yeah.
No one would ever be inefficient. This would not happen in Germany. And here's one for the females. Cry and sob hysterically at every occasion, especially when confronted by government clerks. And last but not least, a rather weird one. Do not cooperate in salvage schemes. Anyway, there you go.
Damn it, we need one more diver to raise this buried treasure. No.
I'm not joining in.
Not me.
But you're the best goddamn diver we've got. No.
No. I think we should start a committee to decide which is...
What are you doing over there, by the way? I'm just poking bits of debris in the grease.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. I'm busy blocking the WC.
Yes. What have you just
What's
put up?
that bag?
What have you just put up Optimus Prime's arse?
A bag of moths? Is that a bag of moths? So there it is, Sam. It is the CIA's most wonderful document, Simple Sabotage.
Wonderful. I like that very much. I think we should write our own Simple Sabotage manual.
It wouldn't be any different.
No, it wouldn't actually. That would make a great short film. Someone needs to turn this into a propaganda film.
My version would have things like, pretend you don't have suitable space to do a recording. Constantly fidget with your microphone.
Yes.
Constantly click your pen.
Doodle loudly.
Occasionally start falling to sleep because it's late at night in New Zealand.
Whereas mine would be, carefully cut out all of your friends slightly close to the bone jokes so that he comes across as much of a stuffy academic as possible.
Because listeners might not know, but I am very close to the bone with some of my jokes. And last week I did make some rather unpleasant Aboriginal alcoholic jokes that Sam had to cut out.
I cut out most of them. I think I had to leave one in for scansion. It just didn't work without it.
Oh dear! You know what makes it even more fun is I love the discomfort I give you, and I can feel you slightly cringing.
You know, we are our episode on religion. So all of our episodes go up on YouTube, and it's literally just a sound file gets uploaded. So there's no pictures or anything. And I think maybe 2 or 3 people listen to each episode. And of those 2 or 3 people, someone reported our religious episode for inciting religious hatred, and it got taken down from YouTube.
It got taken down. Oh, good lord!
It wasn't even a bad episode. Oh well.
I wonder whether it was the bloke that gave us feedback on Podbean and said stupid. And when I went on his file, he was following lots of evangelical Christian podcasts.
Yes, that sounds like the kind of petty revenge you'd seek.
Yeah.
It's funny that you should mention shit spying, because I have a shit spy today.
I was once spied on while I was having a shit.
Were you?
Have I told you about this at the Birmingham University Library?
Oh, you have told me about it. In fact, I think you've mentioned this on the podcast before.
Yeah, some peeping Tom started bloody looking through a hole while I was having a dump, and I couldn't wipe quick enough to go and clomp him. And a clomp, for those people who don't know, is when you punch someone with a pile of shit in your hand.
I was going to say, did you not feel the need to just do one wipe and then shove the toilet paper through the hole?
Flick it over the top.
Also, I like that Peeping Tom was spying on Peeing Tom, or Pooping Tom.
Oh dear.
And that's a good act of minor sabotage, isn't it? Make people feel uncomfortable in the public toilets by peering at them.
The Doggers Handbook.
Yes.
Doggers Against Occupation.
The DAO. So I've got a shit spy rather than shit espionage today, Tom. And I feel a bit bad calling her a shit spy, because she did get a pretty tough time of it and was incredibly brave and tried really hard. She just wasn't really naturally cut out for it.
A for effort.
A for effort. I give C- for achievement. And I've wanted to talk about this woman for months. I think I actually might have teased her in one of our episodes before Christmas.
Did you?
Aha! Shit spy!
She locked in the cupboard at the moment. Poor woman.
Poor woman. No, this is.
I caught you. You were watching me having a poo, and I caught you. And now you're going to sit in my cupboard until I say you can leave.
You're going to get a clumping.
Take you outside and put you up against the clumping wall.
Oh no!
And then I'm going to clump you. Good and proper.
Well, she did getting shot against the wall by the SS, so close enough. Anyway, today, Tom, I'm going to talk about Nora Baker. It's pretty good that I get to talk about her today because just yesterday it was announced that she's actually getting a blue plaque at her former home in London, which is pretty cool. And it makes her the first Indian woman to get one. And for anyone who isn't familiar with British history, blue plaques are big iron plates that get fixed to buildings where important historical figures lived, kind of authors, scientists, politicians, and spies. So you may have noticed, Tom, that Nora Baker isn't an especially Indian-sounding name.
Oh, I was thinking that.
Yes, and that's because, Tom, in true spy style, it's just a pseudonym.
Get out
it's
of
not
here.
her real identity. Whoosh, disappearing into the
Page
night.
1 of How to Be a Good Spy.
Yeah. Her full name was Noor-un-Nissa Inayat Khan.
I thought you were going to say her full name was Nora Baker.
Yes. Nora Inayat Baker.
Nobody suspects.
No, though Nora Baker does sound like a Coronation Street character, doesn't she?
Yes.
Kind of a slightly fusty traditional northern housewife. So yes, her real name was Noor-un-Nissa Inayat Khan, and she wasn't just a spy, Tom. She was an actual full-blooded Indian princess.
Wow.
So yeah, she wore a cloak of many colours, as Dolly Parton once sang. Her father was Indian aristocracy, and her mother was descended from the ruling family of the Kingdom of Mysore, which is towards the south of India. And her mother, actually, despite her Indian heritage, was actually an American citizen. She was born Aura Ray Baker, which is where Nora Baker got her pseudonym from, of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And her dad was working as a Sufi mystic and a touring musician. So she had a pretty hippie upbringing, as you might expect.
Yeah, that sounds very hippie.
It does, doesn't it? The family moved and toured around the world, from the USA to Russia, and ended up fleeing Moscow at the start of World War I for London, just after Nora was born.
What's a Sufi mystic?
Sufism.
Oh, not Sufi.
Not a Sufi mystic, not someone, not the master of minestrone.
The mushroom maestro. I'm getting a sense that you are going to have good regular bowels for the next few days.
Stroking the crystal ball, cock-a-leaky.
Cabbage soup diet. You will lose lots of weight short term. But it'll all come back on.
Toxic cleansing. Yes, a soupy mystic from the Order of Oxtail. From the Church of Chicken and Mushroom. So the family fled Moscow at the start of World War I for London, just after Nora was born, and then ended up moving to France in 1920. She wasn't exactly a natural-born James Bond, nor. She was very shy, she was softly spoken, and actually, before World War II, she worked as a children's author and child psychologist, and became a virtuoso harp player as well. So, absolutely not James Bond. Although I do like the idea of a harp with laser beams on it.
A harp with laser beams.
Laser beams for killing Nazis. And she was a children's author as well, so I quite like the idea of kind of Q branch in James Bond style, giving her an exploding children's book, which after a few seconds sprays chocolate pudding and upturned Lego bricks all over the room. Help you escape from the SS.
Shoots crayons at your newly painted walls.
Yeah. Anyway, when the Germans invaded France in 1940, the Khans fled to Cornwall, where, despite their pacifist ideals, Nora and her youngest brother Vilyat decided to do their bit and join the war effort in a kind of attempt to bridge the gap between Britain and India. So Nora joined the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, where she trained as a radio operator. She got very bored there very, very quickly, but was pretty quickly picked up as someone who spoke fluent French, English and Russian by the Special Operations Executive.
Ah, yeah.
Yes, which...
Useful skills.
Useful skills.
I can see.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the Special Operations Executive has an amazing nickname. It was kind of the British spy agency in World War II. Do you know the nickname of the SEO?
Oh.
It's the Ministry for Ungentlemanly Warfare. How good is that?
How did I not come across that?
How good is that as a nickname?
Not having an umbrella and a top hat in rainy
Indeed,
conditions.
indeed. It's not telling someone when you're going to shoot them. Not giving them the opportunity to shoot back. Calling them names. Tickling their bottoms when they're not expecting it, so that they jump. Indeed, shooting them in the arse. Perfectly acceptable.
For anyone listening who's training to be a spy, if you've got someone on your hit list, don't tickle their arse first. If you're that close,
yeah,
just take them out.
Just take them out.
Don't tickle their arse afterwards.
Yes, absolutely. Victory squat them.
Victory squat. What, on their face?
Yeah.
What's a victory squat?
A victory squat is what you do in gaming when you kill someone in a computer game and you just go and you just squat repeatedly on their face, teabagging them.
I'm learning so much.
So she very quickly got picked up by the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare and began to be trained as a French resistance radio operator. Of course, you need a cover story, Tom, if you're going to be a spy and you're going to be trained to be dropped into France. And so she was seconded to the so-called First Aid Nursing Yeomanry, which I only mention, Tom, because of its brilliant acronym.
Which is...
Fanny. So whilst being trained as a spy, according to the outside world, she was just your average Fanny, Tom. She was just your average member of the First Aid Nursing Yeomanry.
Fanny. Yeomanry? What does yeomanry mean?
Yeomanry is a volunteer militia organisation.
Is that right?
Yeah. But I suspect that yeomanry was only added so that they could make the acronym Fanny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It sounds like an unnecessary addition, doesn't it?
It is an unnecessary addition. So Nora had already been trained as, getting vaguely back to the story, Nora had already been trained as a radio operator by the Air Force, so she was leagues ahead of all of her classmates at spy school, which got her selected as the first woman to be dropped into France as a radio operator. However, while she was very good at the radio part, as a spy, she was not quite so successful, Tom. I've got a few quotes shortly from her training officers, but her training basically finished with a mock Gestapo interrogation in which she was so terrified she literally lost her voice and very nearly vomited on the table. And her handling agent nearly had to leave the room to cry because they felt so bad for her.
Have I, on this podcast so far, have I regaled people with my anecdote of security training at Waitrose?
How closely matched to a Special Executive Operations radio operator into Nazi-occupied France was your training into how to stop shoplifters at a British supermarket chain?
Drinking vodka at a middle-class British supermarket.
How closely do the two combine?
We had an excellent security course. It was a 3-day security course for Waitrose management trainees. It was run by an ex-police officer and an ex-gangster who was 6'5" and Polish. And
right.
The first thing you did on the morning of day one is one by one you went into a room where there was a scenario set up and you were asked to deal with it in whatever as best as you could. And it was a mock scenario from a supermarket and it was videoed so everyone else was watching it at the same time. And the scenario was this 6'5" Polish bloke was eating satsumas in the grocery area of your supermarket and being quite aggressive and you had to go up and deal with it. Anyway, so you had these little blonde girls, little blonde sort of 24-year-old girls going into the scenario and they'd walk up to this chap and go, excuse me, what are you doing? And he'd turn around with bits of satsuma dribbling down his chin and we were all watching this on the video and he'd go, who the fuck are you? Who the fuck are you to talk to me like that? Are you a fucking manager? Who the fuck did you suck off to get this job? This was straight off the bat on the morning of the course. And as he's saying it, he's spitting satsuma in this little blonde girl's face. Who did you say? This girl responded with, it's none of your business who I sucked off to get this job.
To be fair, that's not a terrible response.
Anyway.
I bet he spat out some more of his satsuma at that point.
Yeah, I say.
I beg your pardon.
I wasn't expecting that response. You will at some point finish your parts, Sam. Sorry, I keep taking you away from your topic.
So, yes, so much like the small blonde girl in Waitrose, she did get a bit of a hard time of it at spy school.
Oh.
Years after the war, her personnel file was uncovered and read, and here's a quote, "She's not overburdened with brains, but has worked hard and shown keenness, apart from some dislike of the security side of the course," which, unfortunately, at spy school is quite a big part of the course.
Yeah.
She has an unstable and temperamental personality, and it's very doubtful whether she's really suited to work in the field. Next to this comment, Maurice Buckmaster, who is the head of the French section, or F section of the FOE, wrote, "Nonsense. We don't want them overburdened with brains anyway."
Oh, that's brilliant.
Classic. Good old sexism in the workplace.
That's fantastic. And that's written in the notes.
That's written in the notes of her official personnel file, yes. Handwritten in the notes of her
Fantastic.
official personnel file. There were some quite serious issues with her performance. Firstly, she had what her handlers described as a childlike sense of innocence and was incapable of lying. Again, it's something of a problem for a spy.
Spy, yeah.
In fact, in one interview, she admitted that she'd, quote, "hate to have to do anything two-faced," which, again, as a spy, does not lend itself well.
Yeah.
Secondly, she was constantly terrified. She jumped at literally everything. Thirdly, she was quite obviously Indian, being an Indian princess, and was therefore not the hardest person to pick out at a crowd, especially in Nazi-occupied Europe.
Was she incredibly stereotypical? Did she basically look like the lady from Aladdin? Is that what she looked like? Was she going around on a magic carpet?
Close enough, yeah. That's how she flew into occupied France.
Singing A Whole New World. With the blue genie behind her.
I can't help but feel that we're incorrectly conflating Aladdin with India.
I know, that's what I love about it. It's geographically so wrong.
As I point out, we are aware of this.
we are aware about that slightly insensitive.
Welcome to Tom, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tom.
Arabia is very different to the Indian subcontinent.
Actually, it was the Gestapo who was singing A Whole New World. Ein whole new world. A brand new 1,000-year Reich. No one will stop us now. Yes.
Quick, release the moths in the cinema. This latest work is reaching all brand new lows. From Walt Disney's occupied Nazi studio.
Yes. Pure White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Walt Disney's sitting there going, "Oh, really? Oh, no, really, Nazis, you're going to make me work for you? Oh,
how
no,
awful.
I love
how terrible.
Jews. Oh. And I have such a reputation for being so liberal.
Yes.
Oh. And accepting.
I was debating whether to make that joke, but I'm glad we did.
What did the staff at Walt Disney Studios call it? Mickey Mouse Fritz. They used to call the paper, didn't they?
Yes.
Mickey Mouse Fritz. What's some of the other ones? Donald Duck Owl.
Oh.
That was another one.
I've heard of Mickey Mouschwitz before, but was Donald Duck Owl your own work?
No, that was genuine. I think that was a genuine one. Donald Duck Owl, yeah.
Brilliant. So yes, she other than looking like an Indian princess, subtle lady. It is quite lucky in this case that she hadn't picked up, I guess, more of her mother's American side of her mother's heritage. Otherwise, she'd have been dropped into France under cover of darkness in brightly coloured cargo shorts. Started taking flash photographs of everything and shouting about how quaint and small it all was. was telling an SS officer that she liked his uniform. You Europeans are always so well dressed.
Oh my God! Did I tell you about when I was once at the Colosseum on a school trip and we were walking around the Colosseum in Rome?
No.
The American tourists were waddling around, and I overheard them. They had a tour guide, and the tour guide was explaining what went on at the Colosseum. And this lady went, "Oh my God! It's such a pity they don't put on a show." Yeah, that'd be great, wouldn't it? Let's get some Christians, shall we? Let's round up some Christians and let the lions tear them to pieces. Or maybe some slaves that have been forced into gladiatorial combat. That'd be great fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Get some prisoners of war out.
Come on, guys, put on a
Force
show.
them to club each other.
Yeah, get some Afghanistanis.
Yeah.
Come on. Empty Guantanamo Bay. Come on, guys. Let's have a bit of fun.
Yeah, empty Guantanamo. Put them all in the Staples Arena.
With staple guns.
With staple guns. That's the only weapons they get.
And off they go.
Anyway, slightly cruelly, another of her instructors wrote later in the margins of her file, tends to give away far too much information and came here without the foggiest idea what she was being trained for.
She just sounds like a sort of Kardashian, doesn't she?
A little bit. Like, the heart was in the right place.
Just not much going on between the ears.
Well, I think that was a bit unfair. I think she probably was, or she certainly was very bright, but she just didn't really... She felt a sense of duty, but at the same time a sense of reluctance. She didn't have much more luck when it came to the physical aspect of her training, with her instructors writing, can run very well, but otherwise clumsy, unsuitable for jumping. And the incredibly patronising, pretty scared of weapons, but tries hard to get over it. So I just got an impression of her just screaming every time she tries to fire a machine gun.
I'm imagining her on the assault course, running along with limbs flicking everywhere.
In heels. In heels. It's a bit like, do you know what it is? I get the spy...
With a Gucci bag.
Well, I get the impression it's a bit like the spying version of Legally Blonde.
Yes. Oh, dear. I was going to say, coming up to the first hurdle, just running straight into it.
Oh, God.
Going arse over tit.
The thing is, I don't want to belittle her too much because she was incredibly brave. She was just very much the victim of the endemic sexism and slight racism of the time. But and not a natural born spy. I think it's fairly safe to say she had to...
incompetent.
Yeah, she did have to fight hard for it. She was a little bit incompetent.
Square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, absolutely. She was, on the other hand, a very good radio operator, if a little heavy-handed. She'd been given the pretty cruel nickname Bang Away Lulu by her handlers because of her heavy-handed radio operating style. So when a vacancy... they're cruel. That's mean. Bang Away Lulu. But she was very good at the radio operating side. She was just a little heavy-handed.
Oh dear.
on the old Morse tapper. And anyway, as a particularly skilled, if somewhat enthusiastic radio operator, when a vacancy arose in Paris, as they frequently did for resistance radio operators, given that the life expectancy was measured in days, she was fast-tracked through the rest of the training.
Let's get rid of her.
It's a bit Johnny English. One of the reasons why she did find the job particularly tough was that she was constantly butting up against her own very real morals. She pledged non-violence as a follower of Gandhi, and other members of her family who'd signed up for military service were doing things like minesweeping and things which were inherently non-violent. You're only really putting yourself at risk, incredible danger, but...
Sitting on your computer in 19...
Yeah, clicking away trying to work out the game.
Yeah, I fucked it up. Sorry, that's
no, we all knew. Yeah. We knew the joke was coming. Could have been delivered better.
Could do better.
Yeah. Much like North. The will is there. The execution, not so much. As a follower of Gandhi, she pledged non-violence and now found that she was going to be literally put in a situation where men with guns would be chasing her down. And there was a pretty good chance that even if she didn't shoot back, her actions were going to get people killed on one side or the other. And this actually drove her almost to the point of depression, and she nearly dropped out of the service. She was taken out for dinner by the head of intelligence for the French section and given the opportunity to back out gracefully, because her handlers were really, really worried that actually she wouldn't be able to do the job properly just because of her moral convictions. But she did decide in the end that she was going to do this, and in June 1943 she was landed by small plane, because she was considered unsuitable for parachute jumping, into a field around 190 miles from Paris. And she was met by the resistance and began to find her way to the city. Unfortunately, as was common with radio operators, she didn't last very long. She was pretty quickly... Actually, she didn't do too badly on her own. She was fairly successful, but she was betrayed by the French resistance, either by a double agent. We're not entirely sure what happened. It was either by a double agent or possibly by a resistance fighter who turned against her because...
It was so goddamn rubbish. Who is this person you have sent us? She's shit.
No, well, it was actually...
She refuses to shoot her gun. And she's so fucking heavy-handed.
Yes. She is sending her radio signals from the attic of this house. It is like someone is hosting a tap dancing competition up there. It is like fucking Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins. She is going... We have not slept in days.
I'm fed up of having her peering into my soup. Trying to sell me the future. Get rid of her.
I see a message. I see a message emerging from your alphabety spaghetti. It says...
It says... I'm at the point where I'm going to strangle her with her fucking magic carpet. It is pissing me off. As for the bloody genie...
So yeah, she was actually she was quite successful as a radio operator and did a very good job for 4 months. But either had her details handed over to the Gestapo by a double agent, or it's possible that she was shopped by one of her resistance colleagues in an odd love triangle. This resistance fighter had a boyfriend, and the boyfriend became smitten with Noor, so she betrayed. Very French. Whatever happened, it was very French.
Yeah, that does sound very French.
So, yes, within 4 months, she was captured by the Gestapo in Paris and was interrogated. She was imprisoned and given a very, very unpleasant time of it. She didn't give away any secrets.
Don't slam the door, I will give you all the answers.
Yes.
Oh, we haven't even started yet. Okay, that was easy.
I know nothing. I mean, quite literally. I'm not very good at this. I know nothing.
I arrived on a plane. I got dropped off.
No, she did an incredible job in the interrogation and never gave away any of the secrets, despite her handler's concerns in her training. Unfortunately, she did accidentally become friends with a rather charming off-duty officer and did give enough away that they were able to determine her identity. But not much more than that. She never gave away any of her proper secrets. Unfortunately, as a slightly shitty spy, she had been writing down all of the messages she was sending in a notebook because that one in her training, which she'd been fast-tracked through, she'd never gotten to the part of her training where they said, don't write down the secret messages. So God. She'd been writing them all down word for word in her notebook. So although she never gave anything away in the interrogations, the Germans were able to cross-reference what she'd written down with some of the known communications she'd sent, and were able to start imitating her signals, including her heavy-handed style. So, bang, bang, bang. So it was less bang, bang.
Oh, don't we need... Where's that Obelix?
Yes.
Where we need him.
Get me the clunkiest radio operator you can find. Oh, sorry, German. Get me the clunkiest radio operator you can find.
That very big French chap with the hammer.
Yes. Ideally, we want someone with approximately grade 2 in piano. Knows how to send the notes, but really does just muller them out. So, yeah, she...
No, not Muller. No, not you.
No, not you, Muller. Not you, delicate-fingered Muller.
Muller light.
Very good. Yes. Bang! Yogurt pun.
None of our listeners outside of the UK are going to get.
Outside of Britain, no one will get that. So, yeah, she became less Bang Bang Lulu and more Bang Bang Ludwig.
Oh, dear.
But unfortunately, these fake broadcasts in combination with several other double agents and security lapses, which completely weren't her fault, and intercepted transmissions meant that several other radio operators were captured shortly after being dropped into France and were very quickly executed. So her capture didn't do any favours for the SEO, for the Special Executive Operations.
Well, it did, because they were sending all their shit people to Paris. So,
yeah,
anyway,
yes.
God for that. Got rid of another few.
I feel like that's a little unfair, but yes. Carter herself attempted to escape the Gestapo twice and actually did manage to break out of jail during an air raid and escaped across the roof, but was pretty quickly captured. And after the second attempt was shipped off to Germany, where she was really quite brutally interrogated, kept in solitary confinement for several months, and was eventually executed at Dachau concentration camp in September 1944. So a pretty horrible end.
What a lovely end to a funny podcast.
A pretty horrible... Well, captured by World War II, it was never going to end well. But she was a pretty awesome woman who beat the odds, beat her instructors' expectations, and managed to become...
Beat off the French resistance.
Yeah, that's why she got shot to the Germans. And became the first pacifist Indian princess women radio operator in Paris. So, in fact, she was the first pacifist, she was the first woman, she was the first Indian, and the first princess women radio operator in Paris. So, a combination of all of the above. And she was given the George Cross and Croix de la Guerre from France for her actions in World War II. So, she wasn't the greatest, most accomplished spy out there, but she was pretty damn awesome at the end of the day.
Very good.
There we go.
And we've just had a lot of fun taking the piss out of her.
I know, which I do feel bad for, but...
But that's the podcast.
But that's the podcast, kids.
Anyone's fair game. Good story. Very good story.
Thanks. Good handbook. Bloody good handbook.
What a good episode.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this one. I think it's been good. Right. Well, we should probably think of a topic for next week, shouldn't we?
Oh yeah, I haven't had any thoughts.
You haven't had any
really
thoughts?
been considering it. Moving.
Moving.
I'm moving house. Why don't we do moving?
Okay, let's do movement. Migration. Movement, yes.
Yes, that'd be a good one. Yeah. Mass movements of peoples.
Well, actually, movements opens it up as well, because you could do migration,
Dance.
you could do dance, you could do bowel movements.
Bowel movements. There have been some very famous ones of those.
Musical movements.
Yes, yep.
Okay, movement week. Interpreting history through conceptual dance.
Fire a podcast.
Yeah.
You're going to enjoy this one, folks.
Well, on that note...
Listen to us wiggle next week.
Well, I live in quite a rickety house, so you will definitely hear me recreating Bang Bang Lulu whilst I try and foxtrot around the room.
I gyrate furiously as well, so it creates a sort of zinging
yes.
noise.
Tom gyrates so quickly that he actually generates a small electric field. If you pass the room whilst he's gyrating with a compass, it'll start pointing to him.
Which is, incidentally, in the handbook of simple sabotage.
Is it? Walk around with a magnet in your pocket.
It is actually, genuinely is. Yeah, and confused compasses. Yeah. That genuinely was in there. The gyrating rapidly bit wasn't.
That would be very distracting. If the SS are parading past and you're just there in the crowd going, "Oh yeah, Tom's getting down."
Wow, flossing furiously.
Right, on that note, we are going to say goodbye before it gets any further down the hole. If you have enjoyed this episode, do tune in next week for, well, I don't know what it's going to be like. Could be great, could be terrible. Episode into movement. If you enjoyed this podcast, do move over to that subscribe button on your podcast app of choice. Way! And click subscribe. Leave us a comment. And if you've got any suggestions for episode, hey, it's Radio 1. And do let us know your thoughts, any suggestions for future episodes. We are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Just search for That Was Genius Podcast. You'll find us one way or another. Right, say goodbye, Tom.
Goodbye.
Bye.